Hello, we're here with Prabhakar Shetty of L&T Technology Services. I'm going to talk about Industry 4.0 and some other developments. Prabhakar, at the ARC forum, we've been talking a lot about Industry 4.0. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges with adopting Industry 4.0?
Ralph, it's a pleasure always talking to you. If you look at the Industry 4.0 landscape or the history of what's happening out there, there are 3-4 key points in terms of what is not working. One is about most of the digital pilots have not been very successful. They're stuttered and stopped and not reached a logical conclusion. Second, if you look at the very organization, there are very few benchmarks available because as a concept is new. So there's no reference benchmarks which organization can follow when they start working on these projects or this journey. Third, I would also say that there's a challenge about how do they approach it. Most of the organizations might take a peer level pressure approach. There's a sister company doing some initiative like this. They probably want to do it without thinking what is in it for them. So it's not about having a toy which somebody else has. It's about a tool set which is going to transform you. Now, having said this, if you really also see, there's some practical challenges in terms of the technology landscape itself. One, it is evolving continuously. So nobody knows where is the baseline, where it's going to settle down. Second, if you look at the whole story of machine-to-machine connectivity, the data being coming in, the architecture in terms of the OT and architecture in terms of the IT OT coming together, I think all of this is still in a state of flux. So that makes it very difficult for the larger organization to figure out where is that space under the sun in terms of they start their journey, where are this architecture, what is the data model, so on and so forth. Last but not the least, the people part. I think most of these journeys have come to a standstill simply because inclusiveness of the entire organization and key stakeholders have been the biggest gap. So it is about convergence of the people right from the board level all the way to the end users or stakeholders. Now, when you say convergence, it also comes to a point of acceptance which leads to very poor adoption. That's where most of the projects fail.
Well, we've heard that a lot of the Industry 4.0 initiatives are kind of caught in, for lack of a better term, pilot hell. People are having difficulty figuring out the ROI and the scalability. Can you talk a little bit about how people can move beyond pilots and really understand the ROI and the scalability into a production operation?
If you really see, we spoke about technology transforming. Technology moves faster, and our customers are adopting it probably as fast as the technology change happens. But the challenge is the enterprises or the organizations are very slow in adopting them. So this probably impacts 3 core areas, right? The very business model of the organization. Second, what is the customer's journey? How does the customer view your organization? What is his expectations when he sort of looks at new era or new ways of using the product? All this means what is the impact on the entire people structure in the organization? It's more about a cultural change we need to talk about. So in summary, it's not about telling that it's only about ROI. There are a lot of other things which is impacting. Like I said, people, culture, for example, if I change a data model, that definitely doesn't mean that it's going to give you a $5 million up in your top line or bottom line. But it does many other things. So you need to understand usage of these technologies or initiatives from a context of your organization. Like example I can give is, for example, your shop floor downtime. If it is going to cost say $100 per minute, and every month you're going to have some 5 downtimes of 2 hours each, what is the total revenue loss or production loss you're going to have? If you can address that, how much is the saving you're going to have? So you have to move away from the traditional models of KPIs and ROI, contextualize it to your organization, and ensure that people who are actually going to be part of this, what I would say the use case journey, are aware of what is in it for them. Is it going to be better work, efficiency, quality, throughput? Is it some kind of challenges? Obviously, when you put in new technologies, there will be challenges. So we need to be cognizant of doing that. So that's where I would say narrow view of only ROI will not help. It is a broad-based view in terms of organizations understanding that this is about business transformation.
So L&T Technology Services has started an initiative around Industry 4 now. Could you talk about that and put it in the context of Industry 4.0?
We have been working with multiple clients across industry segments globally, and most of them have started this journey, but probably they're not able to figure out what's the next step. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, most of the challenges have been related to the approach itself. How do you define a use case versus process initiative? How do you ensure that people are included in this? There is an issue about adoption which leads to scalability issue. This is what we are trying to address with what we call as Industry 4.0 now methodology. It's a set of tools, it's a set of approach, it's a set of philosophy changing ideas and thoughts. So what we are trying to say is the digital journey is your journey. So you need to build a roadmap which is in steps, staging, so that scalability is not an issue with clear expectations at each stage. Include the stakeholders early on. Ensure that the budget and all the other, I would say, expectations in terms of the transformation, what are the kind of outcomes you're expecting, is set in place before you start the journey. And most important, what are the kind of technology architectures? It's not about just adopting technologies. Like, for example, if I say that you need to get into a AI-based approach, if your machines and processes need to be also ready to adopt or inculcate that kind of AI-based processes. So Industry 4.0 now is a approach which will address all of these points, where we say the first stage or the first hour is ensure that ROIs and use cases are clearly defined from a senior management standpoint. Second step we say is include your end stakeholders early on in terms of evolving or designing the use case. In terms of throwing it open, we use techniques like design thinking to ensure that we approach it from a user journey standpoint. It's always outside in, right? Because the customer today is looking at mass customization. I think everything is going to be ETO or CTO going forward. Then when you are sure about the design, which is coming from the people, by the people, or to the people, whatever you can say, how do you sort of actually approach the development of the solution? It has to be iterative, multi-drop kind of approach, where people see successes early on. People see some version of the end product early on. Even if it is wrong, the feedback can be incorporated very, very efficiently if you're doing it in stages. That's where...
You talked about something that I think is critically important, so I just want to ask a final question about that. We tend to talk about the technology a lot and the shiny objects associated with the technology, but several occasions you brought up the people aspect of it. Could you talk a little bit about how people get involved and how that's important for the success of a project?
Most of the initiatives probably have a challenge in terms of conveying the message that what is in it for the entire set of organization structure, people involved in it. And it also stems from the fact that there is a inanimate fear about job losses and what is the technology going to do. Is there a skill set gap, so on and so forth. I think progress is all about that, right? You got new technologies coming in, people need to learn new things, and it has been happening for centuries. It's just that the pace of change is faster, people have to adopt faster. But if you really ask me, it's not about learning. It's about understanding what is the role of people in this new organization going to be. My take on that is, it's about making the machines the blue collar workers and the people the white collar workers. I can give you an example. You have data, you got insights. Somebody has to take the decision. So if I can equip my manpower to the third phase of taking the insight and and sort of turning that into decisions which will help organizations change, I think I will go a long way in terms of ensuring that there's participation of everybody in the organization. Most important is when you embark on such initiatives, as I said earlier, it's about cultural change. More than cultural change, it's about empowering people and making innovative and learning organizations. So my take is there's so much people can do. Like, I can give you another example. If you look at the autonomous cars, the electricity, and what we call as the rides, or the Ubers of the world, we all thought that it is going to sort of impact automobile industry, but it has impacted in a positive manner. It's not that people have stopped making automobiles. It's just that the type of automobiles have changed. You no more think of making cars which are passion for driving. You are talking about cars which are more effective people transportation mechanisms. So I think it's not that people become, I would say, irrelevant. It's just that you are getting into the next threshold of business change where people can be employed in a different manner. The example of auto, it has generated new avenues for employment. It has generated new ideas in terms of how people can engage into auto industry.
Wow. So we've been talking about the combination of technology, processes, people, to take Industry 4.0 to a new level, like what you call Industry 4 now. Thank you very much. This has been very interesting.
Thank you very much, Ralph.
We've been talking with Prabhakar Shetty of L&T Technology Services. Thank you for listening.